Yes, Aspedia. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I hope your day and your week have been going very well so far. This is Clash of the Titans, the weekly video series here at Guy Boston Sports, where I break down each ranked on ranked matchup. For today's video, we will be covering number 6 ranked Georgia traveling to take on number 15 ranked Tennessee in a matchup that will have a lot of implications for the SEC. It's going to be a great game, guys, and as always, I have some really great picks to go ahead and share with you. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. And just to let you guys know, make sure to be out on the lookout for the other Clash of the Titans videos coming out this week. We'll be covering the USF Miami game as well as the Texas A&M Notre Dame game. So make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel to watch those videos as well as my full Week 3 college football picks video, which will be coming out on Friday. All right, guys, with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into this SEC showdown. This is a rivalry that dates back decades and decades and decades. And recently, Georgia has, well, I guess if you want to go back 15 years, Georgia has dominated this rivalry against the Volunteers. For both of these teams, this is their first instance of conference play in 2025. So wildly important for the playoff implications, for the SEC championship implications. A lot of stuff at stake here in this Week 3 matchup between these SEC giants. All right, guys, so getting things started here, my first pick of 3 picks in today's video. We're going to start off with a spread pick, and it's kind of a pick that I think a lot of people will be surprised by. I'm going with a bit of an alternate line here. We're going with the Georgia Bulldogs on the spread, minus 2.5. Now, the actual spread is minus 3.5. I'm buying a point off that, bringing it down to 2.5, which I think is definitely a more valuable line. So Georgia minus 2.5 is my first pick in today's video. We're grabbing it for minus 151 over on DraftKings. So a little juice there for sure. Yeah, you got to pay a little extra to get the line at 2.5, but I think it's definitely worth it at the end of the day. I do think Georgia is going to win this game. Now, that might sound like a hot take, and some of you might be thinking, well, why is it a hot take? Well, because a week ago, Georgia were touchdown favorites in this game, and now, as of Wednesday night recording this video, they're only 3.5-point favorites. The line has been steamed down so far. 3.5 points have been shaved off this line. And of course, the reason for that being, people have been throwing their money at Tennessee. Tennessee, the sharp bettors, the public bettors, everybody right now is rushing to take Tennessee. And that's why you saw the line drop from 7, which as recently as Sunday, they were a 7-point favorite. Now Georgia just a 3.5-point favorite in this matchup. Now, I won't lie to you guys. If you got Tennessee at +7, congratulations, because I do think it's a good play. And if it was still a 7-point spread, I would take Tennessee here. I actually do kind of lean Tennessee at the +3.5 line because that 3.5 hook is always dangerous. But I do think Georgia is winning this football game. The problem is I think it's going to be a field goal game. My prediction, my official score prediction for this game is 24-21 Georgia. It's going to be a very, very tight contest here. Now, instead of starting off with the positives as to why I like this pick, I'm actually going to go ahead and start off with the negatives and finish up here with the positives. So starting off with the negatives here with this Georgia minus 2.5 spread, why you might want to avoid it, why you might want to fade me instead of tail me here. Georgia has not looked great to start the season. Now, some of you might be asking, well, why is he starting off with negatives? Why is he telling me all the reasons why this won't hit? Because one thing I like to be is very transparent here on the channel. I like to go ahead and talk about why I think it's going to win just as much as why I fear it could lose. I think being transparent is what separates us from a lot of other YouTubers out there. I like to give you guys the honest truth. Sometimes there's the bad things in the play. Sometimes there's some good things with the play. The bad things here is Georgia has not looked all that impressive to kick off the 2025 NFL college football season. Now, they are 2-0, so they have won both games, so it's not all bad, but they haven't been playing as well as they probably should be, considering the level of competition they faced here in the first 2 weeks of the season. Now, in the season opener, they beat Marshall pretty handedly, 45-7. That's good. But then last week versus Austin Peay, just a 28-6 win. Now, some of you might be saying, hey, that's a 3-touchdown win. What's wrong with that? Well, in college football, especially when you're Georgia and you're playing a program like Austin Peay, 28 points, a 28-6 victory is just not going to cut it, especially, and this is, I think, the more damning part of it, the fact that when you have your starting quarterback out there throwing the football over 30 times in that game and you only scored 28 points, if you're Georgia, it's a bit of a problem. You look at some of the other teams, Oregon last week, destroying Oklahoma State. Even the team they're playing today in this matchup, Tennessee, right? Tennessee scored 72 points last week against ETSU. When you're one of these elite teams and you play these lower competition level teams, you should destroy them. When Georgia plays in Austin Peay, it's not about just winning the game, it's how they win the game. And it wasn't the most impressive showing considering the level of competition they face. Defensively, this team is still stout. They've yet to give up more than 7 points in a game this year, but again, take into consideration, they played Marshall and Austin Peay. The defense looks solid. Although the pass rush, there's some question marks overall. This is still a top 25 defense in college football. Top 20, it's in the conversation there, right? Solid defense here. The offense, they can run the football. Nate Frazier, the running back, has looked very, very strong. They've been able to run the football. They've had success running the football. It's Gunnar Stockton in the passing game that has me a little bit worried here because he has not looked all that impressive considering, one more time, the level of competition. He just hasn't seemed to make the big-time throws. He hasn't done anything yet in his Georgia Bulldog career, in his college football career, that shows to me that he can win these big games and take Georgia to both the college football playoff, but also, more importantly, a national championship. This is a massive step up in competition from Austin Peay. Now you're traveling on the road to Neyland Stadium, Rocky Top, Tennessee. They have an elite defense themselves. It's going to be a tough battle here for Gunnar Stockton. He hasn't looked great against Austin Peay and Marshall. Tennessee's a really rough team to kind of get your offense going, to give it a kickstart. Tennessee's not exactly the team you have in mind when you think about that. So that's a little bit concerning. Georgia's offense having a bit of a sluggish start. Definitely something to consider here. Parlay that with the fact that Tennessee has looked better than expected, specifically on the offensive side of the football. Now they lose. I'm not even going to try to say his name here because I'm going to butcher it. But Nico, the quarterback from last year, who obviously transferred to UCLA in the offseason, losing him, a lot of people had question marks how Tennessee's offense would look this year. They bring in Joey Aguilar, the transfer over from Appalachian State. And to be honest, he's been very, very impressive. They had a very strong win to kick the year off against Syracuse. They scored 45 points, and Aguilar looked very sharp. And then last week, like I mentioned, against ETSU, 72-17 they won. And again, Joey Aguilar took care of business and looked very sharp for the Volunteers. So if you're looking for an explanation as to why some bettors are hammering Tennessee, well, there you go. Georgia, sluggish start. Tennessee, a pretty solid start. Tennessee's offense better than a lot of people expected. Those are the things that kind of go against my Georgia pick here. The fact that Tennessee, their offense looks pretty solid, better than expected. They obviously have a very good offensive head coach in Josh Heupel, who has, kind of made a couple tweaks in his offense as well, which will make things interesting in this one. And then again, Georgia's sluggish start. Those are the negatives. Now let's get to the positives as to why I like this play. First and foremost, it is the head-to-head history against these two teams. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, Georgia has dominated this rivalry. And you want to know how great they've dominated this rivalry? They have won this series in 8 consecutive meetings. The last time Tennessee has beaten Georgia, 9 years ago back in October of 2016. It's been almost a decade since Tennessee has beaten Georgia, and they play pretty much every year. Utter dominance. If you want to go ahead and narrow it down to the last 5 meetings, which, by the way, current Tennessee head coach Josh Heupel, he has been again the head coach for Tennessee in each of the last 5 meetings against Georgia. 0-5, obviously, but Georgia has won each of those 5 matchups by 14 points or higher and have held Tennessee down to an average of 14 points per game across those 5 matchups. They have dominated Tennessee in the Josh Heupel era, talking, of course, about the Georgia Bulldogs. They have dominated them. Kirby Smart has outsmarted them. He's outcoached them. He has shut them down specifically on the offensive side of the football. Now, even Kirby Smart himself has talked about the fact that you can't, use the last however many years and last year's and previous performances to dictate what happens here. But it does give us a pretty clear indication about the coaching advantage that Georgia has. In past years, a talent advantage that Georgia has had. And although Georgia has had a sluggish start here, I do still think they can go ahead and win this game, even though they're on the road in an incredibly hostile environment. This defense is still phenomenal. They should be able to go ahead and put Joey Aguilar in uncomfortable situations. Look, Joey Aguilar coming over from Appalachian State, not exactly the toughest schedules, not exactly a quarterback who's played in a ton of massive, important games like this one. If you look at his 2 years as a starter at Appalachian State, the one real big game he had where he played a top team was last year at Appalachian State. They played Clemson in the early part of the season. Now, Clemson obviously not as strong, although they've kind of had a weak start this year. They were obviously a pretty damn good team last year as well. He did not play well. Obviously, Appalachian State did not play well in general, but he in particular 44% completion percentage on 41 throws against Clemson. Now, granted, that's with Appalachian State offensive line, App State receivers and coaches and whatnot. So now he's in Tennessee, much different circumstances. But obviously, the one time we kind of have a game anywhere similar to where Georgia's level is, and Clemson, I don't think, at this point last year, we're anywhere near where Georgia, even Georgia's sluggish start, Georgia's better than where Clemson was last year. This is the biggest game of his career. So as much as people like to throw that reasoning at Gunnar Stockton, which is also true for Gunnar Stockton, though to be fair, he did play in the National College Football Playoff against Notre Dame. Granted, that was a neutral site, but he has played against a top team in a top level of competition. Again, played in the Sugar Bowl last year. They did lose and he didn't play great, but he has experience, at least a little bit more experience, I would say, than Joey Aguilar in these kind of spots. Joey Aguilar obviously has a ton of starts in his resume, so the more experienced quarterback for sure. I'm rambling a bit here, guys, but the moral of the story is I think Georgia's defense is so damn good, and Kirby Smart is one of the best, if not the best head coach in college football. He will be able to go ahead and take down Tennessee. Now, I do think Tennessee will have a little bit more success this year than they have in years past. I don't see Georgia winning this game by 2 touchdowns. The reason why I'm buying that point and taking it 2.5, I think it's going to be a field goal type of game, a 24-21, 23-20 type matchup that Georgia will win, but it's going to be very, very tight. I think that their defense, Kirby Smart, he just has Josh Heupel in a box. 0-5 Josh Heupel against Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs since taking over as the head coach of Tennessee. I think that is definitely relevant here. As good as Tennessee has looked, let's also be honest, they played Syracuse. They're not the kind of team they were last year. They just barely hung on and beat UConn last week. And they played ETSU. So Tennessee not totally challenged yet either. I think Joey Aguilar, really tough spot. Yes, he has the home field advantage. But this Bulldogs defense is going to wear this Tennessee offense down. On the flip side, Georgia, they should be able to run the football. I know Tennessee's defense also very strong, particularly against the run. But Georgia should find some success. And I do think Gunnar Stockton will step up in this matchup. There's no numbers to really back that up, if I'm being totally honest. It's a gut feeling here, but I think Georgia will take the win on the road here against Tennessee. We're getting a pretty good value at it too. -2.5, -151 over on DraftKings. It's a Kirby Smart bet more than anything else, and you guys might disagree with that, betting on a head coach in his resume over the teams themselves. But again, they're both elite defenses. Both of these teams have offenses with high potential, but they do have some question marks. Very similar to kind of honestly what I talked about last week with Michigan, Oklahoma, where you have 2 really stout defenses, 2 offenses with high potential. It's just a matter of which offense will make that extra play or two. Most people would say Tennessee is that team. I think it's going to be Georgia in this spot. So Georgia -2.5 one more time. -151 over on DraftKings. All right, guys, moving on. My second pick in today's video. We won't have to spend too much time on this one because a lot of what I talked about with the last pick applies to this pick. My second pick in today's video is the Tennessee Volunteers team total under 23.5 points. I'm grabbing that personally right now for -115 over on BetMGM. And again, we've already talked about the reasons behind this. This under has cashed in 5 consecutive matchups against the Georgia Bulldogs. Last year when these two teams met, it was 31-17. Tennessee's had some great teams over the last several years, and Georgia consistently holds them under this number. As a matter of fact, the last time that Tennessee scored at least 24 points or more against the Georgia Bulldogs, again, is back on that October 1st, 2016 matchup when also was the last time they beat Georgia. So that obviously is huge, and I mentioned this earlier. Josh Heupel, in his tenure thus far as the head coach of Tennessee, 0-5 versus Georgia, and their Tennessee Volunteer teams have averaged 14 points per game across those 5 meetings with Georgia. So Kirby Smart, again, he has that huge advantage over them. He just understands. He's one of the only teams, because if you take the Georgia games out of the equation, Tennessee's offense under Josh Heupel has been one of the most efficient and consistently efficient in college football over the last 5 years. Kirby Smart is the one guy who seems to understand how to, at the very least, slow this offense down. So team total under 23.5, -115 on BetMGM. Again, they haven't done this in almost a decade. So maybe this is the year they're due when they finally overcome these Georgia demons they've had hovering over them for the last decade. But I still think this Georgia Bulldogs team, they're number 6 in the country for a reason. This is one of the best teams in college football. I think they take care of business 23-20 or 24-21. I think it's going to be somewhere in that ballpark, which, of course, cashes both of my picks if my prediction is correct. So that's our second pick in today's video. Guys, before we finish up with our final pick in today's video, I want to go ahead and talk to you guys about the sponsor of today's video, Chalkboard. If you like player props and haven't given Chalkboard a go yet, you are absolutely missing out. Right now, they have an incredible sign-up offer for new users. If you sign up today, they'll give you a free $20. Let me go ahead and say that one more time in case you weren't paying attention. If you sign up today with this special offer, they will give you a free $20, no deposit necessary. That, my friends, is a deal. You need to make sure to go ahead and use code GUYBOSTON to go ahead and trigger that bonus, though. So make sure to go ahead and do that. Head over to the link down below in the description and or the pinned comment. I will have it in the pinned comment with the plays as well as the description. So use that link, download Chalkboard, and sign up with code GUYBOSTON and claim your free $20 today. Again, no deposit necessary. Need to make sure to use that code GUYBOSTON to go ahead and trigger that bonus. One more time, link down below, whether it be in the description or the pinned comment. Now, we got one more pick. Let's finish off the show strong. A little bit of a stutter there at the end of that read. That's all, folks. It was kind of giving that energy. By the way, guys, if you are watching the video at this point, please make sure to go ahead and comment down below who you think is winning this game, Georgia or Tennessee. Let me know down below in the comment section who you think is going to win, as well as go ahead and share any plays that you guys like for this matchup. My third and final play in today's video is actually going to be a player prop, and we're actually going to go ahead and switch over to the outlier screen for this pick here. So we have, again, I don't know why I need to re-mention the whole video is Georgia, Tennessee. Guys, I'm recording a little bit late at night, so I do apologize if I'm a little off my game here in terms of stuttering words and slipping on things. I have worked a long day, so the fatigue is definitely setting in here, but we're going to finish here strong. We have Chris Brazzell II. I might not be saying that correctly. I apologize if I'm not. Chris Brazzell II of the Tennessee Volunteers over 45.5 receiving yards. Now, I'm grabbing that over on FanDuel for -114 on the odds. However, there are a couple different options on different sports books for varying odds. Now, you guys might be thinking to yourself, wait a second, this guy just, for 15 minutes, went on a rant about how Georgia's defense and Tennessee can't score and their offense has struggled, but then the player prop he selects for this game is a receiving yards over for one of Tennessee's wide receivers. Yes, that's the most simply way I can put it. Yes, that is the pick I went with. Like I said, guys, I do think Tennessee's going to score a little bit. They're not going to be shut out completely. They're going to score in the ballpark of 17 to 21 points, somewhere in that region. In order to score, you got to be able to move the football a little bit. I do like Chris Brazzell II. He is the #1 wide receiver for Tennessee. He's the only starting receiver from last season to carry over. And to start off 2025, he's had a very strong start to the year. In their first game, he had 62 receiving yards against Syracuse. And then in their last game versus ETSU, he had 125 receiving yards and a healthy amount of targets. That's the key thing here. Okay, he had 8 targets and 5 receptions in their Week 1 game versus Syracuse, 11 targets and 9 receptions in their Week 2 game against ETSU. Looking down below at the target share here, he is obviously the most targeted receiver in this offense with a 23.8% target share thus far this season. The only one close to him, Braylon Staley, is pretty close. He only has 4 fewer targets, another heavily targeted wide receiver, but then you got to go down the list a little bit further. But obviously, he has been their top weapon thus far this season. Now, Georgia, I did say obviously their defense is really, really good. The one area where they've actually been a little weak is in coverage. Now, they're not a bad team in coverage by any means. They're just not as strong as you'd hope for a Georgia team like this. According to PFF, they've been given a 77.1 grade in terms of coverage. That's defensive coverage against wide receivers. 77.1, which isn't terrible, but again, it's not great. In terms of just looking at FBS team, that ranks 43rd among FBS teams on PFF. Among all college football teams, it ranks 74th in the nation. So again, it's not bad. It's just not great. And obviously that does open some opportunities for someone like potentially Chris Brazzell II. Look, the line is where it's at for a reason. I just think that Tennessee, they're going to be able to get sometimes the ball will move. They'll be able to move the ball down the field occasionally at the very least. And if they do, Chris Brazzell II, a pretty good bet to go ahead and target there. And honestly, Tennessee's passing offense has been pretty solid to start this year off. You see right now in terms of passing yards, top 10 in college football. I'm averaging about 352 passing yards per game this season. Yards per play, 7.2. Again, that will change when they play Georgia, who obviously a very stout defensive team overall. But again, I do think that he'll have some success here. The line's low. We're taking advantage of a low line. I think 50 yards is very gettable for Chris Brazzell II in this matchup. A little bit of a riskier player prop, but if you look at honestly any offensive player props on both sides, it's going to be tough to tell because, on the Georgia side, we don't really know. They haven't had, Zachariah Branch has been pretty solid for them on the wide receiver position, but nothing from either of these teams, considering the defensive matchups. It's going to be tough for any player props if you're going over unless you're taking unders here. But I think in terms of overs, this is a pretty good one. So over 45.5 receiving yards for Chris Brazel II. One more time, minus 114 odds over on FanDuel. So guys, that is it for me today. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. One more time, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. Make sure to keep an eye out for those other 2 picks videos. We're going to have USF Miami, Texas A&M Notre Dame, and again, we will also have our full Week 3 college football pick slate video. So make sure if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and look out for those. Until next time, guys, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy your week. And a great week of college football ahead of us. But more importantly, let's go ahead and make some money.